Welcome back into the workshop. We have a little woodworking project to go on today. We're going to work on building a sign. We need a sign down at the little warehouse, or the hardware house that I work in, hardware store. And we're going to build a little sign to put out front, to kind of direct people into it a little bit better. And never built a sign before, but hey, I'm one that loves to experiment and try things out. So we'll bring you along and see if I can do some learning, and you'll learn also, I guess, on the way, see some of my mistakes and see how it turns out by the time we get done. Hopefully we'll have a sign. Can't promise anything, but we're going to give it a shot and see what happens. So the first thing we did is had to go out and we had to buy us a kit here, a letter kit for just a pattern so we can run our router around it. And with this kit from Rockler, not sponsored or anything, but they're probably the most common ones I could find out there. And it looks like Rockler always has some pretty good stuff. So we're going to give that a shot. And with that, we needed to include a collet, and a plunge router has to be used in order to use this kit. So I have several routers. And so I broke out my router, and it's a Bosch router. And I also had bought the collets for doing this. And the collet, like I say, it's just going to, it works when you have these patterns. It just kind of sits in here and you run your router around it, and it takes up that space and routes out your thing. That's my understanding. We're going to see if that's the way it works. But anyways, but I did find out after I did purchase this, and I got my letter stencil in, I went to set it all up on the Bosch router, and I found out the base on the Bosch router is not a standard hole in here for the normal collets that I guess most of them use. So I went back out and we had to do a little bit more research, and we found out that we have to have this kit here that's made for Bosch. And it comes with all the different collets in it. Well, it also comes with the adapter that goes in here, and then this is a quick change thing so you can pop the inserts in and out of, but I still kind of like my brass one, so I'm trying to think that I might tie this one in. I put one of the brass ones into this and hoping that that will work fine. Like I say, so this should come in here and set down into that number, and then I should plunge my router into it and be able to follow that pattern, and should be able to come out with some letters. So I've got to go and pull the router out from under my router table, and then we're going to set up the letters. And I've got a well, actually it's a decking board. It's going to be an outdoor sign. So we're going to try, they're supposed to be able to tape these down. My board isn't quite wide enough, so I guess I'm going to have to get something here to get on either side of it, because these get taped down. I think I need to tape the full length. So I think maybe I'll just get another two boards, set it on either side of it, and see if I can make some sort of a pattern out of it. So let me do that, see if I can get something kind of tied down, and we'll see how it looks after I get that done. Okay, so what we did, well, let's start out with this. I wanted to get a bit that would go in there, and I've changed this back to the Bosch one. I've checked this to make sure. This is a 1/2 inch little round bit, and I want to make sure that it cleared this. I wanted it as big as I could get it. So anyways, I had to adjust this plate a little bit. So make sure before you turn that power on, I was smart enough to think about that ahead of time, thank goodness, or I'd have tore my bit up. Make sure it's not hitting that collet. Make sure it'll actually fit through there. That is a 1/2 inch round bit, and that's a 1/2 inch hole basically. So it's a very tight fit. The only thing I really kind of question about this is, as I'm running this pattern, if I take this and set it on there, it's going to run something similar to that. The problem I don't really like is if you look at it down here, you can see that I don't know if I can get it to do it. You can see that it's going to hit the pattern here, or the wood underneath it, before it levels out there. This isn't real thick. I guess if it was a little bit thicker pattern, we'd be all right, but I think we'll be all right anyways. We've got, I also went ahead and I set up a board over here. According to the picture, they just showed some painter's tape to tape this down. So I've got me three boards actually set across here, so I had plenty of room to do that. I've put a couple clamps on them just to hold all the boards straight and level. And I think what we'll be able to do is take this router and set it here on top of it, and we'll plunge down in there and see what it does. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the power hooked up to it, and we'll set the camera up and see what happens. Hopefully don't skip or miss and tear up my my new template. You can see this kind of sets up off the bottom of that anyways a little bit. So hopefully that guide will ride in there without any problem, and we'll be able to see what it does. So let me set her up and get ready to go, and we'll kind of film it and see if that makes it work. Okay, so we've made our first mistake. I went to plug up the router and I forgot to lift this back up, and I had it just sitting here, and yes, it took off on me and took off some of my pattern. So I'll have to do something, probably just trim this up a little bit to make it work, but I'm gonna play with this piece here anyways for right now and see what I can do with it. Let's see if we can do it without making any more errors. So let's see what happens. Setting it straight over where it should go. It looks like it should be able to trace that without any problem. So let's see what happens with it. We'll go ahead and fire it up. Okay, problem number one. That didn't stick worth a darn on that. So this tape, it's got sawdust up underneath it already. So we'll pull that off of there. Let's see if we can tape it down a little bit better, I guess. Just none of this is sticking at all. It don't work real well then. And I had all the sawdust and cleaned up as I started. Let's try it one more time. This is not going as smooth as they made it look like on there. That's for sure. So we'll go ahead and let's tape it again. And we'll tape this side off again. Not really, I want that to go deeper also. I don't like the fact that I cannot see anything where I'm running my router at even as I go. So that's a little bit frustrating. But let's see if we can go ahead and try this one more time and see if we can make a little bit more of a pattern out of it. We set it in where it belongs. I'm gonna go ahead and set my depth just a little bit deeper. And we'll go ahead and start it back. Okay, so in running that the first time, I noticed that as you route through here, because that collet does sit so darn low on it like that, it hits the wood that you have not taken out yet. And so you don't know where to stop. You have to kind of work it around, but if you pull it up too high, it's going to hit this. So I'm not really sure just how they anticipate that without being able to see where you're at and whether that's there. So I don't know whether I should add just another plate, but I don't want to go too much because it has to have enough to set down into it also. So I guess just play with it a little bit more and see if we can kind of get it. It's really hard to tell on here. Let's see if I can kind of get you a little closer on it. I'll come around this way. You can see after I played around with it, this part here I never did get up into. This one here did fairly well. That's where it messed up when I first started out. We're going to have to move it over. It did stay in place a lot better this time, but it didn't get down into this hole, and it's very rough, so I'm not sure I really like that well. Let's go ahead and see if it'll clean up without tearing anything else up. And we'll come back and see what happens with it. Okay, we're going to try something a little different. I also, when I did this, being as that plate was a little bit wrong, I've gone ahead and taken 3 screws off of this base. We're going to take that one out of here. And then we need to remove this. I also bought something that I didn't know if I would need or not, but it looks like it might make this job where I can't see what I'm doing a little easier. So what they say is next is we'll take this off. You have to remove your bit back out of this. But I bought another plate that's supposed to be universal. And it comes like this. And you're supposed to be able to take that collet and put it in there, which would be this way here, I think. Let's see here now, it could be this way. There's a little indentation so that sits up into it. I don't know if you can see that real well. But anyway, so we're going to do that. We'll put our ring on here. Tighten that down, and then this would go this direction in here. And then they send you with this particular kit all the hardware we should need. They've got a centering ring here, so we'll set that in there, and that should go, I think, well, maybe we should have used a smaller collet. That would probably help us out a little bit. I think that's what I'm going to do. Take that off and try a slightly smaller one here. Like I say, it's going to save you all a bunch of time maybe and frustration if I ever get this thing figured out. Let's go with one that's smaller. You see this one's much smaller. I think our little pin that they say is my centering pin should center up better. So we'll set that back on there like that. And then the centering pin is supposed to sit down in here. And then you drop your router down. Let's just drop that all the way down to start out with. Almost right there. All right, so now you're supposed to be able to take this, slide it down into your collet. Now this centers this plate up, and as you spin this around, you're supposed to be able to find which holes match up with screws underneath it. And so we're looking for any 2 holes that'll match up. That one matches, that one matches, that one matches. There we go. So those 3 are the ones we'll want to use. So I'm going to take these screws back off of here that we used on our other plate. We're going to use them on this plate. So we're going, oops there, missed it by a little bit. Let's see if they're big enough to do this job. And that one. And we'll tighten that up a little bit. That keeps everything centered, so I shouldn't have a problem with my other one. What this is going to do is allow me to see where that bit is sitting at, which should be fairly helpful because that is definitely one of the more aggravating parts. Let me bring this on up a little bit. The screws weren't quite long enough to go all the way through that way. And we'll snug all these down. I guess you can see all that. There we go. All right, so now when we do our thing, that should drop us right into that collet again. It looks like it does, so that's a good sit. So centering pin worked wonderfully. Now I need to bring this back up because we need the other collet on this one. We'll take this one back off. And we'll put this one back in, which is the one we prefer to use. If I wasn't so butterfingered, I'd not drop all that stuff. Okay, let's try that again here. Okay, we snug that up. And then we'll put our bit back in. And we just snug that down a little bit. Now, the next thing we need to do is make sure, like I did before, that when this goes down, this does not hit that. And it is just slightly hitting on this one. I don't like that as well as the other. It's just barely touching it. I don't know, I could almost maybe sand that thing out enough to let it go on past there. It's just barely touching it. I think I can almost spin it with my fingers anyways. Let's just see something here. I'll move it down. Let's see if it does actually spin or if I'm just... Okay, and it's going to go all the way down. I think that's where it's going to sit. We might have to adjust that a little bit deeper. Okay. We'll go ahead and play with that just a little bit more, make sure it's don't miss that, adjust this plate maybe a little bit, but I think that's just about there. Like I say, it is spinning now, but I want to get that a little deeper, so I'm going to bring my bit up. And then we'll set up and see if that helps. Okay, let's see if this helps any. I think I like the see-through plate, this one much better than the other one. The other bit was a little bit too big, never could get that quite to fit through there where I felt comfortable, so we stepped it down to, I guess you can see that, a little bit smaller. I guess this one's actually considered a 1/2 inch round over. I think that other one must have been just a little bit bigger, 5/8 or something. So I think with that, we'll be able to see if I'm actually doing anything in here and be able to get it all. So we're going to go ahead and set it in place and let's see if this helps us out a little bit. Okay, I can see where it's hitting. I still am not real happy with that collet being able to hit the wood. I would think the bit would need to set below that. I don't know what else to do with it. I still didn't get quite all the way down here, but it is easier to see at least where I missed. I think it's taken away part of my template because it's touching that. I'm not too happy with that, but we're going to have to make it do what it's going to do. Unless I make a thicker template to put together like what these are and have them tie together. I may have to do that and use one of these as that, but let me go ahead and do this and we'll take it off of there and just see if I can make it look halfway decent here. Maybe I'll try on the other letter here. Let's see if we can line up with that. We'll start from scratch, see if that helps any. We'll see if we can zoom on into what I'm seeing and see if that helps any. Okay, so that hit it a little bit, got a little deeper on this one. I think we'll just go ahead and run it one pass at a time and see if it'll go on down in there. I guess that's a little bit better. Let me go ahead and run it a couple times and we'll go from there, see if it helps out. Okay, we cleaned that one up a little bit. That's really kind of hard to say on this one here. I don't know if you can really see it or not. With the smaller bit, I think that did work better, 1/2 inch bit. And I guess the collet actually, as you're going around there, actually kind of sits and rides up on this top piece of this wood, so it doesn't really affect it badly. And as long as it's riding on top of that with it cut out that small, I think on the original one I was a little bit bigger bit, and so it was kind of leaving, like in some of these spots, it was leaving so much room that it would fall down into there, and that was probably my biggest part of my problem. So that might be what we need on that. So we're going to go ahead and I got to do something to make me another W, I think. We might have to make that out of something a little bit thicker, a little piece of plywood or something before I wreck that anymore. So we're going to go ahead and try to do that, see what that does, and we'll see what the sign looks like when we get done with it, I guess. Okay, so we run into a few things. I've taken my W and yeah, it just looks terrible. So can't make that work. It's messed itself up. So I figured before I go any further, I'm going to try something a little bit different. So I'm going to make mine out of something a little bit better. I went ahead and got something a little bit thicker. This is actually laminate flooring, nice and hard. I use it for patterns and everything all the time. So I'm going to try. I don't know if we'll succeed. But anyways, we're going to make the pattern, so we got these. I've cut those 15 inches long, and we're going to use the pattern for the pattern. And when I do that, I'm simply putting them on here. I'm centering them up so that they're halfway across this, and I'm putting them kind of in the middle of the board. When I get all done, I think I'm going to just cut this and cut this at the length I need, and I'll go ahead and dado in some spots for it, and we'll make our own darn pattern, and then I'll be able to attach this straight down. This will be very easy to do, and I think it's thick enough that the sleeve will kind of help me ride in there and not take such a chance of tearing up my patterns. So let me show you what we do here. I'll kind of set this up. We'll go through it real quick. Let's see if we can get you set up. So first thing I've done is I take a drill and I drill me a hole in here. So I can get my bit started, and I'm just using a bit with a follow-up guide on it, so I can chase it just like I was doing with any other flush cut. This stuff makes a lot of dust, so we're going to go ahead. We'll vacuum this off. The vacuum cleaner doesn't really catch a whole lot, but it's noisy, so we'll be here with you. All right, that's got that one. And I have been going ahead and when I have this, just to mark this, because I'm gonna have to cut all these back a little bit. Don't think I'm gonna need these marks, but I'm gonna put them down just in case. And then we'll be good to go. And then when we get all done with them, what we've got, as you can see, that's a nice thick, smooth pattern, matches the original. If I use these, I won't mess up my originals, and I can always come back and build more. But what I've got now, over here, I've already got a lot of these done. So you can see they're all made up just like they're originals. And I've got those set and ready to go. So we're going to go ahead, and next I've got one more letter to cut out, and then I'll have enough to do this entire sign, I think. And then we'll go ahead and put them on the table saw and cut them to width and get them so they'll fit together, and see if I can make that work a little better than these little plastic ones from Rockler. So let's see what I can do. Okay, I've got all these cut and ready to go. Now what I need to do is I've taken a look at this, and there's a dimension. I guess I better pick this up. I want to have these the same basic size as this one. And the dimension from here to here is what I want to kind of try to duplicate, just because it works that way. So I've plotted on my sled here, and I've made those marks. So if I'm on one side, I'm going to be able to take this, and I've put a little pencil mark, I don't know if you can even see it down in there, and I'm going to line that up with that. It's 1 inch from that edge. So this will cut my board down, and that'll have me 1 inch from this edge to the finish edge, just like a regular one would be. There's 1 inch from there to here. So we'll do that one with that line, and then we're going to move this across this way, and we're going to line this one up. You can see the pencil mark here. We're going to line that one up, and that's going to cut it off, and that's a 1/2 inch there, because this one here has just a little 1/2 inch bit because it's cut out for the other. So that's what we're going to do, is just run it through the saw, doing that side, move it to that side, and each letter will then be spaced accordingly so that they match up. So that's what we're going to go ahead and knock on out. Okay, what I'm going to try to do on this one is we're going to go ahead, I've set this in here and I've lined it up, and we're going to have to cut the grooves out of this side, and then we'll have to flop everything over and do the other. So I've made sure that all of them are exactly the same length, and we've got them all set down flat on the table, clamped them together, And then what I'll do is just line this up so that those pencil marks, I'll be taking it out just inside of it. So my blade will be there and there. We'll cut that side and this side. We'll groove it out, and then we'll just holler out all the rest of that back and forth on the thing, and we should be good to go. Then we'll flop it around and set it all up for the other side. Okay, setting up for this side of it, we just simply take our square and we mark from this point here. We chase that line down and make our mark on that side, make our mark on this side to make sure that it lines up directly with that on each one of these. So we will leave this part of them, the 2 tabs, which will go into the next one, and we'll cut all the rest of this out of here. So that'll be a little bit of a problem, but we'll start with cutting there and there, and then probably try to do some of this maybe with the bandsaw or something, try to get some of that out of there so we don't have to work so hard at it. I don't want to sit and try to carve all that like that. So we'll go ahead and there again, set it up, flatten it out, get everything put square, and we'll follow our little lines on our sled, and they should be pretty darn close. Okay, for cutting these out, I've set my bandsaw up so that it fits around that groove, which will give me enough dimension there to make sure we got it. And I've left it a little bit shy. But we'll go ahead now and just flip this over and cut everything, just leaving the 2 tabs, and see how they fit together. We'll go ahead and get that started. Okay, we'll go ahead now and just run these through and cut them up. Okay, once they're done, it looks like they're going to fit together just fine. So we'll go ahead and just cut them out, and I think that's a much more solid pattern. There's a couple of gaps in here, but I don't think that really matters a whole lot. I think we're going to be plenty close enough. We might have to trim a little bit off of some of these. They're fairly tight still, but I do want a fairly tight because you don't want them flopping around in there. So I'll go ahead and cut all those up and see what they all look like with these words together.